Tandem Nomads episode 246.
Be kind, it's free. If you can help at least one person into this world, it's all worth it.
Hello, Nomad Nation. Welcome to Tandem Nomads, the podcast show and entrepreneurship platform where you can find great inspiration and tips to grow a successful portable business and thrive in your global nomadic life. This is your host, Emel Deregi. I'm a business and marketing coach and the founder of Tandem Nomads. In today's episode, I want to bring some inspiration, first of all, to those of you who might not be able to work while living on the move, but you still need to make something meaningful out of your life in this journey. And eventually make sure to put on those little blocks that will help you down the road, either build your business or find the great job that you want. Also, for those of you who have a business, you might get some great inspiration of how you can spread the word and get some PR around your work. So to talk about this great topic, I'm really excited to welcome you here, Alexandra Paucescu. Alexandra, am I pronouncing your name perfectly, I hope? And are you ready for this ride?
Yeah, I'm very excited actually. And thank you very much for inviting me, because I heard quite a few of your episodes and I learned some very important things for me and for what I've done later. So thank you. I mean, they are really useful.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so nice to hear that. And I'm really happy to have you here. I've been following your journey and I'm always excited to bring and share some inspiring stories like yours. So, Alexandra, there's so much I want to say about you. So first, Nomad Nation, I'm just going to introduce you real quick. Alexandra is a management graduate with a master in business, studied cultural diplomacy and international relations. She published a memoir book and a children's book. She contributes to several magazines and gives international communication lectures. She also volunteered for the United Nations Women's Guild and the UNICEF. And currently, she's the member of the International Women's Association in Bucharest. She lived in the US as an exchange student and in Austria and Germany as a diplomatic spouse. Currently, she's back home to Bucharest and she's working as a business manager for a construction company. So just in few words, we could see how busy you've been all this time, so many interesting things that you've done in this journey. And I want to show to our listeners how you've built those, what I call those little blocks to be where you are today. But I'd love if you could tell me, before you started traveling with your partner or your husband on the move, what was your life like? What were you doing?
First of all, as you mentioned before, I started traveling when I was quite young, because I've been an exchange student in the USA when I was in high school. So imagine I left my home when I was 16 and I stood there with like a host family who was very nice, but very, very different from my own family, because I'm an only child. And I went there to a family with many children. Different ages. So it was quite a bit of adjustment. So it was like the first time when I really needed my skills to integrate and to adapt quickly. And I figured out it's not that difficult, you know. Maybe I'm lucky because I'm usually very friendly and I talk to people and I try to find like common ground with everybody. So this is really something that helped me along the way, and it still helps me today when I move with my husband and when I go to an event or something where you don't know anybody. So you know how it is.
Right.
You are in a room where you don't know anybody, so you have to start from somewhere. So it really helps you to connect when you are like an open person and you have this communication skills. But I think it also gave me this sense, you know. I remember the when I moved back home, when I returned to Bucharest, to Romania. I was in the last year of high school, and I had quite a difficult time to adjust back. And because I have this feeling that I didn't belong anymore. Or I don't know. It was this confusion in my head where I mean, I'm here, but I used to be in another place, and so it was quite difficult at that time. Now, you know, after many more moves afterwards, I know what to expect first. So I don't have high expectations when I move somewhere. I don't expect that I will get integrated like in a month. I don't rush things. I know that. I take my time, and I'm patient, which was not one of my qualities at the beginning. So in time, we learn stuff.
It's so much to learn this early age, and you've built some great assets for that. So once you've graduated, what kind of career did you have, or what were you doing before you moved abroad?
I studied management, marketing and management in Bucharest. I worked in sales and marketing for about 10 years until we moved for the first time. So I had not a long career, but I had something, yeah. And then at one point I met my husband. He was already a diplomat, so there was no surprise about it. So I knew from the very beginning what I was getting into. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to write the book, the memoir book, because I knew that he was a diplomat, but I had literally no idea what that really means. I mean, okay, I thought I knew about the glamour part, which everybody thinks they know. But all the other details, which are usually like undercover and not many people know about, I had no idea about them, and I discovered them along the way. It's a beautiful life, but it's not an easy one. I mean, everybody has to understand that.
Yeah, I was just speaking at an event with people who had nothing to do with diplomacy, and I started talking about that, and people were very surprised because indeed we only imagine the glam, and there's a lot of like complex situation. But for those who are listening, they might know being diplomat or not, living on the move comes with a lot of perks as well, on top of the beautiful experiences. And what was the biggest challenge for you?
I would say at the beginning, I was missing terribly all my friends back home, because we have a lot of friends here, and our house is always open, and we always have like friends over the weekend, and we give parties, and we have barbecues, and all of a sudden you move somewhere where you don't know anybody. Of course, in time, in a few years, you make new friends, but it takes time. So at the beginning you are completely alone, and it's a feeling that in time you learn to live with that. But at the beginning, it's not very comforting. The thing that helped us, I think, is that for the first time when we moved to Austria, I mean, first of all, Austrians were incredibly nice to us. So I have all the best of words for them. So I cannot complain about it. And second of all, we moved when I was pregnant with my second child. Basically, within 2 months after we moved to Vienna, I had a toddler and a baby in my hands. So I didn't have too much time to complain about loneliness, or because I was like busy all day long. So I didn't have time to think about, okay, miss my friends back home too much.
Yeah, that's great. How about, you've been pretty complete in terms of career. You've built a career for yourself before you moved abroad. How was that process for you in giving up your job? It might have also been a benefit to go abroad, because when you have kids and you have to take care of them, is also sometimes an advantage to not have to work. But I wondered how you experienced that transition, going from a professional woman to a stay-at-home mom.
First of all, it's definitely an advantage. You have the advantage of time when you are in our situation. I mean, when you are an expat wife, or because I find expats' life very similar to ours. So when you are your diplomatic spouse, you have this advantage of having time to stay home with your kids, to see them grow, not rush things, not miss things. So this is certainly an advantage. But I had a lot of doubts at the beginning, because I was raised by my parents to be a very independent woman. I thought back then that I had everything I needed in life at a certain point. So in terms of like material things, or everything else. So I thought, should I give up some of this just to go. I don't know where and to do what. I had this doubt. The best advice that I got then was from one of my uncles who said that, okay, if you decide to move, you don't have to think, okay, I'm giving up my job, I'm leaving my house, my friends, my family, or you have to decide if the man you are going with, it's enough for you. I mean, he will be able to feel all these things. So this is how I started. And I strongly think that if you are happy at home, you can do whatever you want. And if you have the right support at home, you can find another job, you can discover a new career, you can nurture your hobbies, you can do a lot of things, but you have to be happy to have a happy life,
Right.
a completed sentimental life, you know. I mean, I think this is the basics.
That's so good. I love that advice from your uncle. So tell us, how did all of this started? Oh, all of it. I don't like this word, but I want to say all these business and all these achievements. You've achieved so much. You've wrote 2 books, a memoir. What's the title again of the book? I'm sorry.
I'm just a diplomatic spouse.
Yeah.
I received a lot of questions about the title of the book. How did I come up with it? And it's basically part of a phrase that I heard at some point when I was in Vienna. And when I was quite at the beginning, and I didn't know that this diplomatic life is highly hierarchical and it matters whose wife you are, and in
So
terms
true.
of how you're seen about in some circles. And I was very naive back then about all these things. I was at this evening event, which was really rare for me because I usually used to stay home with the kids because we didn't have any nanny, anything. So it was one of the very few occasions basically when I was out, and I was so happy to talk to people. And at some point I was talking to, it was a group of people, and one gentleman, he was talking, and you're from Romania, and okay, from the embassy. And at some point he said, but what exactly are you doing at the embassy? Sorry. And I said, oh no, my husband works at the embassy. I see. So you're just the spouse.
Oh God, I have chills right now.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You can imagine it's quite a few years later, and I still remember that.
Oh my God.
When I thought about what title would be the right one, I said, this is the right title for the book.
Just a diplomatic spouse.
Yeah, because unfortunately, this is how we are seen. There are a lot of people who don't bother to see behind the title, or I'm not interested in what you're doing. So.
Wow. It happened to me, to be honest with you, that I've been told exactly that. And
really?
Oh my God. If I share my personal experience with that, the less confident I felt, the more it triggered me. It's funny that over the years, when I started building my own confidence, when people would say that, I would actually laugh because I found it funny. But it's actually not funny when you are in a place where we kind of look for some kind like assurance and from outside, right? So it's always from the within. I always believe that that confidence comes from within. And which I want to know, what triggered you to start this book and what did it lead to? So that's a long journey, but let's start with what triggered you to start this book.
Everything that happened, especially for the last 10 years, it just happened naturally. It went from one thing to another with no real effort. I mean, of course, I put a lot of hours into it and a lot of passion into it, but it wasn't anything forced. It was something that came naturally. And with the book, the idea came from a meeting with an old friend of mine, with a friend that I met when I was in high school, in the US. And he was also exchange student as I was, and we met years later, and he knew that I was married to a diplomat, and he asked, so how is your life? I know it must be worry-free, but tell me, I want to know the details. And this is what triggered me, because he was assuming that everything has to be perfect. Just let me know the details, And this is how it started. And I realized that not only him, but a lot of people have these misconceptions, and they have this cliches about how our life is, what do we do all day. I always got annoyed when, for example, when I was in Vienna, and there were some friends from back home who are very accomplished, like in terms of career. They are all like managers, and they run big companies. They were asking me, what do you do all day? And I hated that question.
Oh my God. I'm sipping champagne and doing
Yeah,
manicures.
right. I mean, I really hated that. And when I was in Vienna, I mean, I told you at the beginning, I was really busy with the kids for the last 2 years. And then my kids, both of them were in kindergarten. So that's where I started looking for something to do. And it happened just like that, because one day, you know, when I was in the park actually with the kids, one of the mothers from one of the children in kindergarten, she was working for the United Nations, and she told me, you know, but there is a guild there, a foundation who helps women and children, and they do wonderful things, and maybe you could write to them and ask them if they're interested in your help and everything. And she gave me this idea, and she put me in contact with somebody from there. I met with them. She liked me. They liked me. And they said, yeah, maybe you could come join us and work with us. And this is how I started. I mean, it was just from a simple talk on the playground, you know.
Yeah.
And one thing led to another. And actually, the experience I had at the guild, the Women's Guild, was one of the best. I mean, I really treasure that.
This is so good. So what was it that you were trying to do with the first book that you started? I guess your journey started from there, that led to connections, to volunteering at the UN. It led to a lot of things.
So when I was in Vienna, I just contributed to this organization, to this foundation who helps women and children in need. And they do a lot of things in fundraising and events. And they have a wonderful Christmas bazaar. I've done that. And then after we moved from Vienna, we moved back home for 1 year. And then we moved to Berlin. And when I was in Berlin, I mean, I started writing the book. And the thing is that when I finished, I was looking for ways to promote it. I was really new in this. I didn't have any idea how I could do it. And I started writing at some magazines, and I looked on the internet for diplomatic associations and expat group, because the book tells my story, but it's a story that a lot of people can relate to. And it also has this chapter where I give some guidelines about how you could make an easier adjustment when you move from a place to another. So I think it's useful to others who go through the same experience, or maybe they are at the beginning, they are new in this. I also tell a lot of the stories with mistakes that I've made, and hopefully they will help to have a better experience. This is how it was. And I guess I was lucky. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people resonated with the story. I mean, I received so many messages, you cannot imagine, from people who don't know me or didn't know me back then. And they just told me or wrote me that, yeah, I went through the same things. And I know what you're talking there, because I saw my own story in that. I think that's the best reward. I mean, what else could you wish for?
That's amazing. And you briefly mentioned something where I think you can really bring a lot of value. From my experience working with a lot of people trying to get promotion, to get exposure for their businesses, be it a book or be it something else. One of the things that people get stuck with often is to reach out to be interviewed, to get exposure. And you've been really inspiring to watch. I remember when you actually even reached out to me, among many people probably, you were persistent, right? It wasn't possible right away, and you did not give up. So I would love you. And here you are. And I love that about you. So I'd love you if you could just share how you got so much publicity. You got so much, it almost went viral. I could see it among the community. So what are the tips that you can share for those, be it through a book or a business, to help those who either are shy to approach people to get publicity, or those who actually just don't know practically how to do it?
I think if you really believe in what you've done, and if you really believe in yourself, you should never give up. It's always the right time and the right place for you. I mean, maybe it doesn't come at the moment when you expect it, but it will surely come. If it's meant to be for you, it will come. This is how I thought. I mean, okay, I believed in the story. I didn't have this idea, okay, my book is going to be like #1 bestseller. I had realistic expectations, let's say, but I believed in it. And the more feedback I received, I got more confident and more confident. And I reached out to people, and it was like I had the chance to be interviewed by television in Romania, and then somebody from there saw me, and then another one approached me, and okay, would you like to write for us? And then it also happened with the magazines that I'm now writing for. I mean, one saw the book and they asked me, okay, would you like to write an article about the book? And then they said, okay, would you be willing to write more articles for us? Of course I will. So I was always open, and I think this is really important to stay open to new opportunities.
That's important.
I'm always grateful, for every opportunity, but I'm like genuinely grateful for people who help me, and I always try to, if I see some honest and genuine help that I receive, I always try to be thankful, and maybe to reward or to give something in return. And I think this is like in the universal law or something. It really helps. And if you do good, it will always come back to you.
That's so good. I love that. And, we talk a lot in this podcast of practical tips of how to get exposure and visibility. But I always say to my clients, and every time I speak, that none of that works if we don't have the right mindset. The first one is to actually believe in yourself, as you said. The second is to believe in the universe, and to really, from that point, when you believe in yourself and you trust in the universe, the rest is much easier to do somehow, and the results are much better. And the third thing you said is gratitude. And I think that's really, really important, being grateful and also helping other people. I've seen you do that. You would also be here to support other people, and that's important as well. And it always comes back to you.
Because I never forget how I started, or who helped me and how they helped me, with no interest in mind or just sincere help. And I try to do the same, especially in the last 2 years. I've met such wonderful people. Just to give you an example, I wrote this second book, the children's book, and I wrote the English version. It's called Bonnie Goes Around the World. It's a little story about a little girl who travels in some places around the world with her grandma. And I have this very good friend of mine who's German, and she said she's a journalist, and she's done a lot of editing, and she offered to do the German version. And she offered to do it with no interest. She said, I can help you because it's a nice story. So if you want, I can do it in German. So it was like a help that I didn't expect. And also, other people who helped me along the way. And I try to do the same. Persistency, I think it's really important to trust yourself and to be able to, and wise enough to build a network. This is also something that I've done. I try to have around people with same interests, same qualities, and also people who support each other. And I think that's really important. If you have this support system, and especially in the expat community, I think it's a very big world, that there are a lot of expats around the world these days. And it's a very big community and very supporting one, because we understand each other best. Because we've gone to the same experiences, so we've lived the same kind of life, so we understand each other best. We don't judge ourselves, and we know how to support ourselves and our actions. So if you know how to build your network and to go around, and to, if you want to market something, and a business, a book, whatever, you should have the right channels and the right audience. So it doesn't help if you, for example, you want to advertise a children's book to scientists, or you have to go to the mothers groups, or
that's so important.
Give you an example.
Right. I think you're saying something indirectly, if I just emphasize it differently. The importance to know your audience and where to find your audience. And from there, build a network, build relationships in an authentic way. For sure, that's important. That's the only way where it goes to the long haul. What would you say to those who shy away, who are afraid of approaching people? Because this is something that you've done openly, and probably because, as you said, first you have to believe in it. But what else would you say to those who don't dare to approach people?
I think there are a lot of people who are afraid they might be judged. And I have to admit that maybe at some point I was judged too by some people. And I heard some, maybe they say, oh, okay, she promotes it too much, or she believes in this too much, but it's never too much when you really believe in yourself and in your product. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, if you know it's good, or if you believe it's good, you should do whatever you can to promote it, and to let others see it the way you see it. So if you just stay there in one corner, nobody will come to you, and you have to reach out first. Okay, maybe in some cases, and it happened to me, as I said, there will be people who will reach out to you, but the first step you will always have to do yourself. So you have to do the first step, and then okay, you have to be with your eyes wide open to all opportunities around. And to, for example, for the last years, I've been asked to do a lot of things that maybe I didn't see any like direct benefit, or I don't know, something that really helped me directly, but I still did it because I thought, okay, there is this nice person that maybe might need my help, or I don't know, I should do it because I just feel like it. I don't care if it has any impact afterwards or not. And if you don't calculate too much all these steps, you might be surprised that there are some things that come just all of a sudden. You don't have to plan like everything and to do everything just for a reason.
Right. I love that so much. It's so important to have a yes attitude, especially when you get started. Say yes to everything, even when it doesn't make 100% sense. And then the more you grow, the more eventually you'll have to start, which is the difficult part, I found, to start learning to say no, because, the more you grow, the less it's possible to say yes to everything. But I do believe that it's important to have that attitude of seeing opportunities everywhere, even if you can't see a direct opportunity. You're actually serving other people. When people come to you to ask you something, you're actually serving them and helping them in a way or another. So that will also come back, I think.
This is how you do basically with your business, because I've seen, I've been interviewed by your friend, Camila, who is such a nice person, and she's
shout out to her.
She's a pleasure, such a pleasure to talk to, and warm. And I have all the best words for her. I know that you help each other. So this is basically what you do too. So you help other people, and eventually they can help you in return. So this is the basics in this expat community, because this kind of relations you can find anywhere in this group. And I really appreciate that. And I'm grateful because my book, I discovered actually this community. I was not very involved with Instagram, with this expat world so far. And I was not aware it's so developed. And so it's such a strong community. And because of the book, and because a lot of expats read it, this is how actually I entered it. And it's a big step forward, because it gives you, as I said, support, but it also can give you ideas for business, ideas how to integrate, ideas how to do something portable or meaningful for you, for the community. It can give you a lot of ideas they might transform into something bigger.
And it created new opportunities, for instance, for you to write for a magazine. So do you want to talk about how that happened, and where do you see, what kind of value does it provide to you when you do that?
Actually, this is the thing that brings me most joy. It's one thing that I love most these days. And that's why I keep doing it, although we came back home and I have a normal day-to-day job. Besides that, I keep writing, and I like it because it gives me pleasure first. It keeps me involved, and it gives me continuity, which I think it's really, really important in our kind of life. We are now here, probably in a year or two, we will move again. I will have to leave my job again, but I will still have the writing. So that's the thing that will keep going. And I think that's really important and also comforting, because when you move that often, it's like, okay, you have gaps in your resume, and also you have maybe stops, you stop everything, and then you have to rebuild everything as you're trying to teach others to have this portable career. For me, I think writing is my portable career, if I can say this. It can be done from everywhere, but most of the things And most important is that it really gives me joy. And this is what I think is most important in life. I mean, if you do something with pleasure, you can move mountains.
I love that. This is so good. And one thing that I want to emphasize in what you said is the word continuity. Even for those of you listening who might not yet have a business or don't want to have a business, but still want to build something meaningful. First of all, I wanted to bring Alexandra to share how one little action leads to another one, that leads to another one, and leads to building such an amazing journey and experiences. And the second thing is, you talked about the importance of doing something you love, and when you do that, things happen. And we were mentioning Camilla, shout out to her, she's a great coach as well, and she created this concept that I love that's called the portable purpose. And having continuity is also not only about, I believe so much in entrepreneurship, because for me it's a great source of personal development and purpose as well. But even if it's not a business, having an activity that you can take with you wherever you go, that's beyond just a hobby, but that also helps make an impact, on top of helps as well with your resume to keep it active and to keep it alive. Because that's what often happens with expat partners and a lot of people who live on the move, is to have those career gaps. That makes it difficult later when we come home to get a job, actually. So on top of the purpose, I think there's a lot about finding that thing that makes you want to continue and have continuity somehow. So I love that you brought that up.
It doesn't matter how happy is your family life, for example, or how full and busy it is. You need to have something outside, something of your own. So it doesn't matter if it's volunteering, if it's writing, if it's having a career, it's whatever, teaching, or I've heard so many stories from one of the magazines that I write for. I do interviews with other expat spouses, and I write about their hobbies or their businesses, and I discovered, I mean, there are so many interesting women, wonderful. I mean, they have such passion, such talents that most of the people have no idea about, because nobody bothers to question them. I mean, okay, well, they are in the diplomatic world, they go to these soirees and that's it. I mean, they don't care what they do at home. But besides the fact that most of us are like educated women who had a career before, or at least we have university degrees, or maybe we don't use that in the current life, but we have other things that we transformed and we had idea. And just to give you an example, I had an interview a few weeks before, and with this lady who had this idea to have a community during the lockdown who shares like artistic talents and to share their artistic work with the other members of the community. And this started small in one city and it went global. I mean, there were like thousands of artists from all over the world who expressed their feelings during the pandemic time, and it helped really because you can relate to people who go through the same things. So just from a small idea and a small contribution from somebody, it went to a big thing. So if you have an idea, you have to to believe in it and to do something for it. You just don't say, oh, okay, maybe it's not for me, or maybe it's not going to work, or don't think too much, just act on it. So
just do it, right? Just do it. And that's also a little bit of what I was saying before. It's all about starting somewhere, right? If you want to do something, but you don't really know what, just start with something, no matter what. And one thing leads to another very often. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the first thing that you started. It will still lead to something. And actually was wondering, how much of an influence did this journey between the two books and the writing that you do for the magazines and volunteering you did for organizations as well, how did that play a role in you now coming back home and actually going back to a traditional 9-to-5 job?
I think it helped a lot, because maybe you don't say it, but over time, all these experiences will add up to your life and to your memories. They help you shape you into who you are today. First of all, I'm more patient than I used to be like 10 years ago. I'm calmer for sure. And one other thing, I've always had an interest in that. But when I was in Berlin, I also studied cultural diplomacy and international relations. And I also started giving lectures on this thing, or intercultural communication, which I think is really important. And it's one of the mistakes that a lot of people make when they move, because they don't study too much the country where they are moving. I mean, they have wrong expectations. And of course, there comes the disappointment afterwards. So take your time to think about, okay, what I hope I will achieve with the next move, with the next, it's not like to make a 5-year plan or, but just to take your time and to think, okay, what I hope to achieve, what are my plans, what is possible, what I need in order to achieve that, who I need in order to achieve. If you put all this down, I think you will see it much more clear. Okay, this is the path that I have to take. So for me, it helped to get more organized. It helped me structure my life and the way I approach things and the way I don't rush things. And I know I have to take time. And that's a lesson that I learned for the last years. I also learned, unfortunately, not to trust too much people, because I've also been disappointed terribly in some people, I have to admit, that seemed very nice and friendly at the beginning and very supportive, and they proved to be like quite the opposite.
That happens too, right?
Yeah, so maybe we have to reach out to people, but also we have to keep in mind that not all people want our best.
Right. So what do you say, did your employer now like made any comment about this experiences or journey when you in the hiring process?
I would say it really helps because, for example, also when I was in Berlin, I managed a group at UNICEF. Also there, it helped that I had previous experience with organizing events, with fundraising, with management positions, but it keeps adding up. So I manage maybe a foundation or a group. So it's not the same like managing a company, but it has similarities. So it proves that you are organized, you can manage people, a group, you can give them direction, structure. So it helps. It's important if you find the right job or if you find the right employer who have an open mind and understand that if you are able to find your way in a different country where you don't know anybody, where you have to start from scratch, I think it's the best proof that you can succeed anywhere. So I think it's even more important that people acknowledge your qualities because you've succeeded in countries where you had no support. It's this support system, you know, that we all have when we are in our native country. When you move abroad, you don't have that. Or it's like very rare when you maybe find something. But most of the times you don't know anybody. So nobody knows you. You have to prove yourself all over again. So it's even more complicated. If somebody really understands the situation, they will appreciate you even more because you've done something in a more difficult situation than the normal one. So
this is so good. And there's, I think, one thing that I think you're doing really smartly on top of doing it because you love it, that you continue to write, that you continue to engage with your books, and you continue to contribute to other platforms, despite the fact that you have a full-time job and two kids in the middle of a lockdown. There's a lot of work to do here. It's really busy, but I do think that it's really smart because once you move, again, you will have that continuity. You will have that community you've built to continue to work with and collaborate, and who knows where it will lead.
That's exactly the idea that I had. Because, for example, this is, I think, one of the mistakes that I've made when I moved after Austria. Because I moved back home and I thought, okay, Austrian chapter is closed. So I have to come back to my normal life. I have to concentrate on my life here. I didn't think about, okay, what's next? How is going to be for the next move? Now, you know, as I said, I mean, when you gain some experience, you become maybe a little bit wiser and you know what to expect for the next years too. You have to think like in chess, you know, with some steps ahead. And you think about, I'm now here, I'm comfortable, I'm good, I have everything I need. What am I going to do for the next move? Should I start from the scratch again? Going to be as difficult or maybe even more complicated because you're getting older, let's face it. So it's even more complicated. That's what I thought, no, I have to try to keep this continuity. And it's not difficult if you really manage your time wisely. And second of all, I think it really helps. And I also wrote in the book, because I think for our family, at least, it took around 6 months every time to feel completely adjusted into a new place. It doesn't matter if it's back home or going abroad. And if you keep very busy during these 6 months, I think it's a little bit easier because you don't have too much time to think about, okay, oh, I moved. And so you are always thinking about something and planning something. So
That's
it's
wonderful.
even better. So that's what I'm trying to do now, actually. And I have this agenda that I write everything, because I have these meetings that I go and meet people.
Yeah. And even if it's not like a portable business that you have, by building these activities, at the end of the day, you've built a community, and that community is so precious.
It's important also for your mental state, but it's also important, because let's say one day, for example, say you move to a city where you already know somebody, just virtually or something, but you won't be alone like in other places, because you already have somebody there. So it's going to be easier from the start. So it's only in your benefit. Basically, I mean, I've made some friendships, like this, that I never expected. I now really treasure.
This is so good. I loved hearing your journey. And before we end, I would love you to say, where is the best place actually to connect with you and find your books?
To connect with me, it's basically you just Google it. I would say most active I'm these days on Instagram. I also have this Facebook page, which is called Just a Diplomatic Spouse. The books can be found on Amazon. There've been some other platforms for the Just a Diplomatic Spouse. It's also available on Waterstones, which is a website in UK. I think Amazon was really part of the success because it's international. It gave instant exposure to the book all over, because I received messages from America, from Australia, from Japan, from Indonesia, from countries that I've never been.
It's so powerful. So Nomad Nation, to find more information about Alexandra, I will share all this in places with you in the show notes of this episode, and go to tandemnomads.com/246. So thank you so much, Alexandra, for sharing your journey. Very inspiring. It's been wonderful, and for being generous with that. And is there any last word you want to share before we say goodbye to those who are either looking to get more promotion, or those who are actually trying to find that thing that's meaningful on the go?
First of all, I want to thank you for the invitation. It's been really nice that you invited me. I want to tell everybody, as I mentioned before, the key to any successful thing is to believe in yourself. First, you have to believe in that. In order to make others believe in your success, you have to be 100% confident and sure that it's a good thing. When you do it, everybody else can see it in your eyes, can feel it in your voice, can hear it in your voice, can read it in your words. So you inspire that. If you believe in yourself, make sure everybody around you will eventually understand that it's a good thing.
I love that. Thank you so much for this important reminder, Alexandra. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. So Nomad Nation, take note of that. Believe in yourself, believe in what you do, and you will attract all the great opportunities for you. So I can't wait to hear your feedback. Don't hesitate to connect with Alexandra, and meet you in the next episode. In the meantime, I wish you to turn all your challenges into great opportunities.